Hello, BookTube. Recently, over on his channel, Aaron Facer did a book haul, despite having said in his last 10 book hauls that that book haul was his last one. He keeps promising that, and he keeps going out and harvesting books. I thought that was a little odd, so I mentioned it in our next shirtless Skype session, and he said that if I didn't do a book haul soon, I was a soy cook. Now, at first, I didn't take that as an insult because I love cooking soy in my air fryer, in my pod. Soy is wonderful. It's so malleable, a good source of protein, but it can be anything you want. You can make it crisp, you can make it mushy, you can make it flavored of any kind. It has no identity of its own. And then I realized that Aaron has a funny accent, and he wasn't calling me a soy cook, if you know what I mean. So with that kind of a manhood questioning insult on the table, I had no choice but to go to the Brattle Bookshop, even though I was just there the other day and got 500 pounds of books. So I went to the shop, and it was a beautiful morning, clear as a bell, nobody there at first, and I did some shopping, and I got a pile of books that I want to show you. Now, Aaron's taunt wasn't just that I needed to do a book haul, it was also that I needed to parallel his own book haul. And I thought, oh, come on, isn't that asking rather a lot from a random bookstore? But he wouldn't hear of it. If I didn't do that, I was a soy cook. So I did my best. I found, for instance, a Viking Portable Library Edition. He, in his video, found Mark Twain. I found the Elizabethan reader in this old format. I swear, the Viking Portables look different in every iteration that they had. The Elizabethan reader, the medieval reader, and the Renaissance reader all share something in common that isn't always present in these great old anthology volumes, and that is relatively new translations of little bits and snippets here and there that have not been translated before, or not widely. The Elizabethan reader, therefore, is a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic, wonderful thing to lose yourself in. I haven't checked. I still don't know if I have this. But this is a nice, it's a sturdy enough beater copy. The thing you want to watch for in Viking Portable editions is whether or not they were used in schools. They were very popular in schools, and you don't want to have something that's heavily highlighted. But this one isn't so. And this one has who does it have in here? Richard Hooker, Thomas Nash, William Shakespeare, John Donne, Francis Bacon over and over and over and over and over again. Sir Walter Raleigh again. This will be the little bits and pieces in here, especially the John Donne little bits and pieces, will be wonderful to read. And I did parallel Aaron Facer in one other thing as well. But first we'll do the other paperback. The other paperback that I got is for Garb August. I found something that I'm pretty sure counts for Garb August. This is by William Bannister, and it is called Counterfeit Death. A body in his car, a gun in his back, a strange blonde in his bed. So then there she is pointing the gun at his heart, and there he's got the gun again. So they might be getting along. I don't know. I'm guessing that this is trash. So I will throw it on the pile for Garb August, which is only a week away. Then the another paperback that I got was this little thing, and the only reason I got it, I'm interested in the subject matter, but the distinguishing feature is that this is a perfect kind of thing that you find at the Brattle. Something that this was never available commercially. Who knows what kind of a story of travel it had to get from where it was originally procured to the sale lot of the Brattle. Who knows where it went. This is edited by Andrew Myers, and it is a tribute to Washington Irving that is made by the Sleepy Hollow restorations in Tarrytown. So this was never for sale. This was just a thing in a gift shop, maybe a gift to renovation backers or whatnot. It's a collection of little essays on Washington Irving, who's one of my favorite American writers. So what do we have here? A look at the sketchbook, the theme of Americanism in Irving's writings, the English literary scene in the 1820s, Irving in Spain, Irving seen through his letters, the American literary scene in the 1820s. It's no time at all. Each of those essays is like 2 pages long, but be happy to read it. Perfect little thing that'll go on the shelf. We've got a whole bunch of books on Irving. They'll all go on that. They'll go on that shelf. I'm sure there'll be something in here that'll be revisitable. So I doubt that I will read this just once and then get rid of it. Then we have something by Robert Alter. I have had this book a few times. I'm not 100% sure why I grabbed it this time. This is his book, The Pleasures of Reading in an Ideological Age. And it's about the mechanics of reading. Allegory, simile, metaphor, allusions, pacing, prose, verse, whatnot. I remarked at the time, when did this first come out? I want to say the early 2000s. 1989. I remarked when this first came out to my bookish friends that the one thing that's missing from it is the pleasure of reading. it's just missing completely. I don't know quite why I grabbed it. It has been a long time since I read it, so I will see if maybe it isn't quite as arid and uninviting as I remember. The activity of reading, characterized in these pages, is the least inviting thing in the world. If you knew nothing about reading except what you learn about it in this book, you'd close this book and say, well, God save me from that. I'll do anything else. And I know that Robert Alter doesn't feel that way. So I will give this a reread since I bothered to get it. Then the next thing is another requirement that Aaron Facer laid down, because in every one of, if you watch his videos, I'll try to leave a link to the troublemaking mail haul in question. If you watch his videos, you know that in every book haul that he does, he mentions some dippy poet that nobody's ever heard of that he's gonna read and love and parse and maybe talk about in a really great video on his channel. So I figured that I had to do the same thing, so I got this. This is the collected poems of Robert Francis, who is a Massachusetts poet, who learned his craft at the feet of Robert Frost. And this is... he wrote slim volumes of poetry for the whole of his career and had a career doing it. But this is the big collected volume. I'm pretty sure that this has everything, including a handful of poems that hadn't yet been published. And I don't know that there was anything after this. When did this come out? When was this thing published? Well, the latest date is 1976. I doubt he lived more than a decade later than that. So I don't know that there are any other, any bigger poetry collections. Of course, he's completely forgotten now. It just lapsed completely out of print. None of the original books, not this thing, nothing. But I have to read it from front to back. I have to consider it and weigh it carefully, because those are Aaron Facer's rules. It's Aaron Facer's platform. We're just on it. That's all. Then this next one, under ordinary circumstances, this thing would be the find of the day, but it's not. I'm going to save the find of the day for last. But just the other day, I was at my biography shelf, and I pulled down the trade paperback that I have of Lord David Cecil's book on Melbourne, on Lord Melbourne, which is a great biography. It's incredibly great reading, writing, everything. And I have a trade paperback of it that I really like the book, but I also really like the trade paperback. It has a particular design to it. And in the back of my mind, I thought I remembered that the hardcover with a dust jacket is incredibly boring looking. It looks it's the blandest cover in the world. And I pulled that Melbourne book down. I'm looking right at it. And I was flipping through I was looking at one segment, one incident in Melbourne's life later on in his life, so at the end of the book, and I was sensing right away that in another fraction of a second, the spine of this thing is going to break. It's just a trade paperback. It isn't made to be read and reread and used for 40, 50 years. It isn't made to do that. So I was thinking, I took it aside. I put it aside on a side shelf over there, because I was thinking, well, you've never seen this paperback since. And you haven't seen the boring hardcover, but you should set this aside. It's not going to take another reread, so set it aside as a reminder to yourself that when the next time you see the boring hardcover, get it and just bite the bullet. And today, I found the hardcover of that book with the paperback's design. I had no idea that this even existed. And there it is. So I've got a nice, heavy, new hardcover. I don't need to worry about the trade paperback anymore. I can just get rid of it. This is a superb biography. Read it and loved it. Then this next one is a biography. It's a century-old 2-volume biography, but I don't know whether or not it's good. I've never actually read it. All I know is that it's about someone that I find endlessly fascinating. And the time when it was written, 1920s, 1910, late 19-teens, produced a lot of great work. All of it was in the shadow of the Edwardian era. I am giving my beloved Edwardian era all the credit. But it produced a lot of great work. A lot of these old biographies, they'll never come back into print. No one will ever reprint these. There's a chance somewhere down the line that somebody could reprint this. But no one is going to reprint 1920s biographies of Genghis Khan or the Roman emperors or anything like that. And the same thing with this. This is by J.A. Stewart, and this is his biography of Robert Louis Stevenson. The man and the writer. Here we have the 2 volumes. These have the incredibly deckled edges. These edges are incredibly deckled because they needed to be cut. Though the pages needed to be cut. And let's see here. There you have the frontispiece, like there, and this is just something I know I'm going to enjoy. It won't be. This is kind of frowned upon now when it comes to reading biography. The whole world has just given in to this whole idea that the newest biography is the best one by default. Probably this is going to be more knowledgeable, certainly better read. The author is certainly going to be better read than any modern biographer of Robert Louis Stevenson. Not just better read on the sources of Stevenson's life, but better read generally in literature and poetry and history. And I prefer that. If I can get it, I prefer that. So this is 100 years old, but I don't think I'm going to care. Now, in this case, Stevenson has a great biography by Frank McLynn that I really, really like. But there's no harm in more. I tend to collect Stevensoniana. I tend to like it. Who knows what gems of observation will be in this book. I know that the author of the biography here knew everybody literary in his day and was probably closest, if that isn't the wrong word, to Meredith. I'm not sure that Meredith had the capability to be close to anyone he viewed as even quasi a rival, anyone connected with the world of letters. He could be friendly and incredibly personable, incredibly immediate and charismatic to people that he didn't think impinged on the literary world at all, especially women. But one way or the other, I know that this author knew Meredith well, but he probably knew everybody else. This will be a feast. It will be a feast. It'll be a treasure to read. Then this next one, a little bit melancholy, but maybe not. I don't want to Irish up the joint. This is called Dinosaurs, Mammoths, and Cavemen. It's a study of the art of Charles McKnight. Maybe won't be a familiar name to a lot of you, but you'll probably know a lot of his pictures. This has detailed biographical sketch, the only one that I will ever have read of this artist, at the front, including black and white sketches of his and whatnot. And then the whole back of the book is a color catalog of his dioramas and his various illustrations of everything, just everything. A lot of these are the property of and visible at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Look at that. See, these classic illustrations of dinosaurs, these all come from McKnight. And I've always wanted a big book of his artwork, especially one that's paperback, that's not, £1 million and awkward to use. The only reason that it's a little melancholy is because I don't know that I will ever see those dioramas with my own eyes in person again. And that's always a little bit strange because I've spent so much time looking at this guy's artwork in the Museum of Natural History. I've spent so much time doing that over the decades where I have done that. Brought innumerable friends to look at those dioramas, and the friends often would say in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the aughts, those friends would say, but surely you've been here many, many, many times. Why would you still be staring rapt at these dioramas? That's why. So I love them that much. They're that great. So to have them here in this book, all in color for me to look at, especially since I might not ever see them myself again. Look at that. Incredible. That is absolutely wonderful. So glad to find it. And then we have what is probably the find of the day. I had this once upon a time when it first came out, about 30 years ago, and I got rid of it. No idea why. And the last time I looked it up online, it was ridiculously expensive. And I said then, the Brattle will provide. I'm not going to pay triple digits for a book. And sure enough, the Brattle did provide. This is the Landmark Herodotus in a hardcover. Bob Strasso did a whole series of these landmark historical volumes. He did one. The first one was the Landmark Thucydides, which used a creaky, dusty, old, in the common domain English language translation of Thucydides. This one uses a new translation by Anne Purvis. So this is a new translation of Herodotus. This book came out a decade after the Landmark Thucydides, and well, I was a big fan of the Landmark Thucydides. I sang its praises, sold it to a bunch of customers by hand, but this is yards and yards better. This is Strassler and his team beginning to realize the full capabilities of the Landmark format. These are wider than normal, and they are the text of some ancient writer and innumerable textual additions. Just innumerable. They're full of maps, they're full of illustrations, and the Landmark Herodotus has, if you just go to the table of contents, you see dozens and dozens of appendices where where different scholars discuss for 2 pages or 10 pages or 20 pages some subject that is touched on briefly in Herodotus' own book. What was his view on tyranny and what was the state of world governments at the time? What about slavery? What kind of travel was possible and when and how and for whom? How expensive was it? All that sort of stuff that won't fit in footnotes, but that you definitely want. These Landmark volumes are just incredible. They're just amazing. And I have most of them, but I don't have this one, the one that I want most of all. So I'm happy to find it. It was really the find of the day, the Landmark Herodotus in a nice hardcover. If it had been a paperback, I would have passed on it. I would have hated myself, but I would have passed on it. But no, this is nice and solid. This will take another reread, definitely. So there you go. That was a totally coerced trip to the Brattle Bookshop. Had not planned on going, only mere days after the last time I was there. But what do you do when you're being bullied by Aaron Facer? What do any of us do when he's exercising his reign of terror over us all? So I'm not objecting, though, because I found some stuff that I'm really going to like. I found the Landmark Herodotus. I found dinosaurs, mammoths, and cavemen. Charles McKnight's artwork. For all of you who have been to the Museum of Natural History in New York City, you will have seen his work. I found a 2-volume biography of Robert Louis Stevenson, probably by someone who knew people that knew Stevenson. I don't know how well the author himself knew Stevenson. I found this thing, good Lord, a hardcover edition of the very book that I had pulled off the shelf to get rid of, or to reinforce in a hopeless attempt to make it not fall apart. Now I don't have to worry about it. I found a dippy poet, Robert Francis, because you got to get a volume of poetry when you're doing an Aaron Facer book haul. I found The Pleasures of Reading by Robert Alter. We'll see if a reacquaintance with it will improve it any. I found a tribute to Washington Irving, a collection of essays that was never publicly for sale. So these essays aren't anywhere. It's not like you can find them and read them. They're not going to be online. I doubt very much they're going to be online. They aren't in any other anthology. They'll be here. And then 2 mass market paperbacks, Counterfeit Death for Garb August, and the Portable Elizabethan Reader. Not only because I love the portable series, but also because Aaron Facer commands that you get a portable reader when you are out doing an Aaron Facer book haul. And that's what this was. Because I am a plaything of the peer pressure of BookTube. But anyway, I had a great time. I will be back to the Brattle later this week. I will give you all the details when it happens. But in the meantime, I'll wrap this up, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.